Shalom and welcome to 2 Minutes of Torah. The shir is entitled Parshat Bilaam. Parshat Balak, facing reality or distorting reality. So all of us are exposed to reality, day and night. All of us meaning all of God's creations, all of human beings. It could be an extreme form like a Bilaam, as we'll examine in a moment, or it could be anyone in the business world. I'll give an example: General Motors. Anyone followed the car industry 40, 50 years ago? You see the top 10 cars in America. It'd be GM, and then Ford, Chrysler. And it went on that way for years, for decades. And even as the Japanese cars started to come onto the market, it used to be called the Datsun, which then became Nissan. The Americans laughed at it. It's nothing to be taken seriously. They kept making the same old cars, not very efficient. Quality control was not great. There was nothing to be concerned about, or so they thought. And of course, as time went on, the Japanese took over the basic economy market. Then slowly they took over the mid-size market. Then eventually got into the Lexus Infinity market, the high-end market, and the trucks. And it was just somehow the American car companies were just blind. Until it was too late, they all went bankrupt and eventually tried to rebuild. A bit of a wake-up call at that point. But reality was very clear in the 50s, 60s, 70s that they better really work on quality control and make it more efficient and not let the unions go ahead and just take over the whole industry in an inefficient manner. But somehow the reality just did not hit them until it was very, very, very late in the game. And that's it. We always have reality staring us in our faces, and the question is how we want to deal. Do we want to ignore it, somehow push it away, and that's it. Okay, that's one example. In our everyday lives, of course, we have reality hitting ourselves in our face in terms of, are we growing properly? Are we dealing with the different things in a proper manner? And that's just reality. Besides, before everyone gets into the world of Torah, reality, economic reality, social reality. And then, of course, we have another reality, the reality of the Torah that we received 3,300 years ago. We have to act a certain way, overcome our anger, deal with its tzedakah and chesed, shalom bayit, learning. So that's a reality that God gave us 3,300 years ago. And how much are we conforming to that reality? How much are we distorting that reality to fit into our lives? So the Saadya Gaon says down in his introductory chapter, the praiseworthy man is he who makes reality his guiding principle and bases his belief thereon. Notwithstanding his wisdom, he relies only what is deserving of trust, is wary wherever caution is in order. So he looks to try to understand reality, and he fits himself to fit that reality. The reprehensible fool, on the other hand, is he who sets up his personal conviction as his guiding principle, assuming that reality is patterned after. He has his own feelings, and that's his reality. And he'll fit everything in. So the example with GM, of course, where they had their reality that they are number one in the world, they'll always be number one in the world, and the facts just can be answered away somehow or another. That's an external reality that Hashem presents, and you have to do what you want with it. Either adapt yourself to the reality or the other way around. Okay? With Torah, you have an anger issue. The Torah says you have to work on it. So is it somehow you're going to figure, I don't have an anger issue, it's really not me, it's the kids that are just crazy all the time, it's my boss that's crazy all the time, and my wife, all these external things, that's what's causing it. And somehow you will convince yourself that without realizing it, that your anger is fine and everything else is the problem. And then you're not aligning yourself to the Torah. It says, no, you have to adjust yourself to this reality of Torah. And then, of course, you have Bilaam, where God's speaking directly to Bilaam. But he has not necessarily an anger issue as much as an anti-Semitism issue, which most guys seem to be plagued with, especially these days, where there's just a hatred towards the Jewish nation, the jealousy, just cannot deal with them. And here he has a reality saying God loves the Jewish nation. He wants to bless the Jewish nation. And Bilaam, you could go join the nation, or you could go ahead and teach all of mankind, the Gentiles, about the no-hide laws, about how to live a righteous life, either as Gentiles or to convert. It's an amazing opportunity, and God is right in his face. And yet, as God is speaking to him, which is the ultimate reality, he goes in and somehow distorts the reality to fit into his preconceived notions. It's an amazing lesson we learned from this week's Parsha about how far man can go to distort reality to fit into his notions. And just to finish off, this is a book called The Israeli Solution by Caroline Glick on page 10, and she quotes President Clinton's ambassador Dennis Ross, who wrote the following. He says, "The Americans neglected and politicized the prudential issues of Palestinian compliance," as he put it. In other words, a basic idea that was needed in order to have a two-state solution of some kind of peace with Israel is that you give up terrorism, you stop teaching your children that Israel is Satan and they must be destroyed. Without that, there's nowhere to go. And yet Palestinians continuously violated that most basic of conditions. So what did the American president, Clinton, Obama, this is before Obama, what did they all do again and again? So he says they neglected the prudential issues of Palestinian compliance in favor of keeping the peace process afloat. Every time there was a behavior, an incident, an event that was inconsistent with what the peace process was about, meaning anytime they blew themselves up again, they named another street after a murderer, after a suicide bomber, and they glorified these people, which is against the whole idea of the acceptance of the Jews as a right to live. On the contrary, they would just keep talking about them, demonize them, and teach that way in their textbooks. So what would they do every time? The impulse was to rationalize it, finesse it, find a way around it, and not to allow it to break the process. Meaning the American presidents, again and again, they have that premise: we will make peace. If the reality is, there's no one to make peace with. The most basic premise the Palestinians are not accepting. Not the Palestinian leaders, not the Palestinian masses, not the Palestinian school system. So what do you do with that? You just have to stop the peace process until that's fixed up. No. The peace process, they're married to the peace process. They will somehow continue that peace process. And the reality of the Palestinians destroying Israel, that's just somehow will work. We'll work it out somehow. There's a premise and just ignoring reality. So we see this again and again. Whether it's GM ignoring economic reality, whether it's a person ignoring the Torah reality and not trying to adjust his lifestyle to the Torah reality. He takes his personal reality, and that is what sets the tone. Whether it's the American presidents in the world have their reality that will make this peace process work, and the reality is there's no one there on the second side for peace. Or Bilaam, the most stark case where God is speaking to him directly. The lesson of the Parsha is clear. How are we going to answer Rav Saadya Gaon's question? He's setting up reality as your personal feelings, and then you'll distort everything to fit the real reality, or are you going to face the ultimate reality and look to go ahead and adjust and adapt your midah, your lifestyle, to fit to the ultimate and true reality? Shalom.